So with the new season releasing January 8th, let's get you guys set up with 3 champions for every single role that we expect to start the year off in incredibly powerful spots. There are so many different changes for this season, and there are definitely certain champs who will benefit more than others, so let's dive into that with an extensive breakdown in today's video. And if you don't want to play fair in Season 16, listen up. We've just released the single most LP spiking course of the entire year, the Challenger Launch Course. All throughout December, our challengers have been spamming PvE to solve the meta before it even hits live servers. We've distilled hundreds of hours of testing into a single course. You'll learn everything you need to know in minutes, while everyone else stays confused for weeks. Skip the generic January YouTube clickbait and learn what actually matters. Click the link below to join SkillCapped instantly. You'll get the launch course today, plus our full Season 16 curriculum releasing throughout the month, all backed by our 5-division rank up guarantee when actively using our platform. And with that said, let's get into it. So split pushing is going to become a lot more powerful for Season 16 for select top lane champs due to the new role quests. Upon completing the quest for top lane, you will be given a free version of teleport, and if you have taken teleport for one of your summoner spells, then you will just be given a buffed up version of teleport upon completing the quest. It's going to take a while to complete this quest as you won't complete it during lane, so we don't think the quest addition will really influence whether or not you would prioritize teleport, but more so make it so that champs who already liked running Ignite will just have a much stronger mid to late game. So Quinn is the first solo carry top lane champ on the list for this reason. Quinn likes to run Ignite, but now that she'll get access to teleport in the mid game, it'll just make her snowball potential even more insane than before. Quinn's roam power with her ultimate is already incredible, so the fact that she'll be even more mobile by having access to teleport should make her a very powerful solo carry pick. The new Phaelite warding location in the island brush is going to be amazing for Quinn as well. The Phaelite will give you vision that extends all the way down the river, so when you're shoving the enemy under tower, you'll now have more time to react to jungle ganks if they come from the river. On top of this, the new AD assassin item called Bastion Breaker has potential to be really good for Quinn. The passive on Bastion Breaker provides you with bonus true damage to towers after killing enemies, so if you're splitting with Quinn, this could end up as a solid purchase. Other than Bastion Breaker now being an option, the core build shouldn't change too much for Quinn, as Profane Hydra as the rush, and then Edge of Night and the Collector as core pickups should still be great, and then Electrocute is the Keystone Rune. Definitely look to prioritize your ban on Malphite if you intend on picking Quinn, as his armor stacking and attack speed slow are pretty annoying to deal with. So a top lane champ who has always wanted to take Ignite but had a hard time justifying it over losing teleport is Urgot. We're really high on Urgot to start the season because it's very likely that the enemy top laners you run into will be experimenting with not taking teleport as one of their summoners. Even with the quests, you can still take teleport, and then when you complete the quest, you just get a buffed up version of teleport. Top laners are going to want to experiment with running alternatives though, and this is really where Urgot can look to excel. Urgot himself can look to grab Ignite, and if the enemy top laner also takes Ignite, then he can look to absolutely roll his opponents in lane. There are very few champions who can beat Urgot early on in lane if he can land his E, and therefore if the enemy is not going to teleport, you can set them really far behind by abusing your strong laning power. The build for Urgot should remain very similar to last season, with Black Cleaver as the rush into Steric's Gauge second. If you want more offensive power after that, then you can grab Bloodmail, while Jock Show is the standard defensive option. You'll want to grab Press the Attack for the Keystone Rune, while the Inspiration Tree is for secondaries. It's mainly ranged top laners who are going to be the most annoying to lane into as Urgot, so banning out Kennen or Vayne is never a bad idea. So with all the new changes that will influence top lane for this season, it's likely we see a rise in auto attack reliant split push champs, and who better to answer that meta shift than Malphite? Malphite was already one of the best top laners towards the end of Season 15, and we expect him to be in a great spot to start the new season as well. Fiora, Tryndamere, Irelia, Jax, Kayle, Yone, Riven, and Quinn are champions that should see a nice uptick in power with split push getting better, and Mal has over a 54% win rate into all of them. Not only is Malphite a great pick into the majority of split push top lane champs, but he has also found really good success in the Zehen matchup, and Zehen priority likely remains quite high, despite him getting nerfed a pretty good amount in the 25.24b patch. Of course, Mal is still going to have a few troublesome matchups, as Sylas is the one you really want to avoid, and therefore perma-banning him if you intend on picking Malphite is what we'd advise. For Malphite's core build, it's a Sunfire or Hollow Radiance rush into situational tank items like Thornmail, Frozen Heart, and Canic Rookern. You should be taking Grasp for the Keystone when in a matchup where the enemy needs to be in melee range to trade with you, whereas if you're against a ranged top or a top who is more spell casting reliant, grab Comet. So moving on to our jungle selections now. First up is going to be Diana. Diana has a lot of potential for Season 16 for a few different reasons. First is that ganking has now become a lot more difficult with the introduction of Phaelites providing bonus vision. Diana doesn't really care as much about this though, because her early ganks aren't that great anyways, and she's completely fine full clearing. Certain junglers like Nidalee, Elise, or Lee Sin 7 who need to be ahead to be most effective may have a harder time succeeding this season, but for a level 6 spiking jungler like Diana, we think she'll be really strong. Secondly, the Scuttle Crab is now going to be spawning in at 2 minutes and 55 seconds. The problem with this is that some junglers won't be done their full clear by the time the Scuttle is up. Diana, however, will be fine because she has a faster clear than most junglers, so she'll be able to make it to the crab spawn before them, which will be key. And then thirdly, there's a new item being introduced called Dusk and Dawn, and it's literally the perfect item for Diana. It's a mix between Rocket Belt, Lichbane, and Nashor's, as Dusk and Dawn will provide you with 300 health, 70 AP, 20 haste, and 25% attack speed while it's got the Spellblade passive. This Spellblade passive is even more insane on Diana than for most champs because after you use a spell, it will proc on hit effects twice. As we can see in the background clip here, a Q followed up by 2 auto attacks will proc Diana's passive. So what this means is that Dusk and Dawn will provide you with way more passive procs throughout an extended skirmish. If you want to go for a more bruiser style of Diana, then a Dusk and Dawn rush into Liandry's 2nd and Riftmaker 3rd is a core build we expect to gain in traction. The issue with building Nashor's and Lichbane on Diana before is that the items just left her super squishy, but with Dusk and Dawn providing health, it eliminates that weakness. Matchup wise for Diana, Jax is a good ban to consider as his dodge from E makes skirmishing a lot more difficult for Diana. For Diana's rune page, you should be taking Conqueror for the keystone and then dip into Inspiration for secondaries. So early ganking gets harder for the majority of junglers due to the new Phaelite warding locations, but there are a few who won't be affected as much. Talon is one jungler in specific that we think should see a nice boost in relative power because of his ability to dodge common warding locations with his ability to traverse over walls. Both bot and top lane are going to be heavily warding the island brush that has the Phaelite in it, so ganking through the river is going to be really hard this season. For Talon though, what he can look to do is path into the dragon or baron pit, hop over the wall, and then make his way through the tri-brush to gank. When playing against most junglers, simply warding the island brush is going to be enough to spot enemy jungle ganks, but for someone like Talon who can hop right over walls, he's going to be impacted significantly less by all these vision changes. Matchup wise for Talon, he doesn't like playing into champs who are going to build tanky and especially stack armor, so with Malphite being a popular jungler and top laner right now, he's a good ban to consider. The core build for Talon is going to consist of a Ghostblade Rush into Axiom Arc 2nd and Opportunity or Edge of Night 3rd. For the rune page, you'll be taking Fleet Footwork as the keystone, while Inspiration is for secondaries. One jungler who's been very underrated for a long time, who we think should benefit a ton for Season 16, is Zyra. So due to the fact that Scuttle Crab now spawns in at 2 minutes and 55 seconds, it doesn't give the majority of junglers time to gank or invade after they are done their full clear. For example, Zac is done clearing at 2 minutes and 50 seconds if optimized, while Zyra is able to finish a full clear 10 seconds sooner at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. This is if fully optimized though, as most average jungler players won't even be done their clears by the time Scuttle spawns. If you can be sitting in brush prior to Scuttle spawning and chunk the enemy jungler out as they have to face check into you, then that can give you a massive edge up in winning the Scuttle fight. So because Zyra can clear faster than the majority of junglers, she can look to control the river brush and poke away at the enemy jungler if they try and contest her for Scuttle. If the enemy jungler is playing a slow clearing champion, then you can even look to invade them after your full clear and try to poke away as they are trying to kill their last camp. And then not only this, but similar to what we mentioned when covering Diana, ganking is simply going to be much harder this season with Phaelites, so picking a jungler who can just farm extremely fast like Zyra is going to be good value. Zyra is a champion who doesn't need to be accelerated a ton in the early game to succeed, as she only really needs her Liandry's to be effective, so hard farming and getting to the Liandry's spike as soon as possible is a very simple win condition to play for. After Liandry's, you can either build into Rylai's or Shadow Flame, and then Zanya's is generally a good third purchase. Shadow Flame will be most optimal into more squishy enemy comps where they won't be stacking a ton of resists. Otherwise, Rylai's is always a solid pickup. And then for the rune setup, you want to be taking Electrocute for the keystone, followed by Precision for secondaries. Matchup wise for Zyra, she wants to avoid playing into super heavy dive and champs who have the ability to get onto her very easy, so banning out Hecarim is good value. If you see a Cassiopeia without boots in Season 16, then for the first time in history, it actually means she is trolling, as it's no longer a meme. Cass can now buy boots as her passive is being changed so that instead of providing bonus movement speed, you will now increase the effectiveness of movement speed by 6, scaling to 40%. So what does this actually mean then? Well, based on our testing, Cassiopeia will be gaining a lot more movement speed for Season 16. In Season 15, if you had your Rod of Ages completed and were level 7, you would have 356 movement speed. In Season 16, however, if you have boots, you will now be up at 388 movement speed, which is a 32 movement speed gain. When hitting an enemy with Q in Season 15, your movement speed would spike to 453, but in Season 16, it will now spike to 484, which is a 31 movement speed gain. And then if you procced Phase Rush in Season 15, you would see your movement speed at 486, while in Season 16, it will be up at 519, which is the 33 movement speed gain. Access to more movement speed is just a nice boost boost to Cass because she's so reliant on her spacing to be effective. Not just this, but the fact that Cass now has the ability to opt into Merc Treads or Steel Caps is huge for her too. Cassio with Merc Treads when playing into a magic damage heavy or CC heavy comp is going to feel so much better. On top of this, the fact that ganking for junglers is going to become harder this season, we may see skirmishing around Scuttle Crab increase, and playing someone like Cassio who can acquire early priority and skirmish really well at level 3 is going to suit you extremely well. Core build shouldn't be changing for this season, as Rod of Ages, Rush into Rylai's, and Archangels will remain great, and then you won't be needing Phase Rush as much now that Cass just has more movement speed, so Conqueror should be the optimal keystone for most games. In regards to Cassiopeia's matchups, she doesn't like playing into longer ranged mages who have strong zone control, so banning out Syndra is good value. With Hextech Gunblade making a comeback for Season 16, it should add a lot more viability to Katarina. Just the active slow that Gunblade provides is so nice for Katarina because, in a way, it actually adds more damage to Katarina's R. Since Gunblade slows, if the enemy you jump on doesn't have a dash, they will be forced to sit inside your R range for longer, leading to more DPS for Cat. From the stats alone, Gunblade is 147% gold efficient. It provides 40 AD, 80 AP, 10% lifesteal, and 10% spell vamp. 40 AD has a gold value of 1400, 80 AP is worth 1600 gold, 10% lifesteal is worth 535 gold, and 10% spell vamp is worth 900 gold. So that's 4,435 gold in value for an item that only costs 3,000 gold. This isn't even taking into account the active, so if Gunblade ships to live servers in the state that it's in on PvE, then we expect for Katarina to be really good. Even though Gunblade is 147% efficient from its stats, you do have to keep in mind that not all champs have the ability to take advantage of both the AD and AP from the item, so it's really not a strong item unless you build on a specific character like Katarina who has AD and AP ratios on all her abilities. After rushing Gunblade, you'll have many different ways you can go about your build. Lichbane and Shadow Flame will be options if you want more magic damage, while Blade of the Ruined King and Kraken Slayer are viable if you want more physical damage. An item combo of Gunblade and Blade of the Ruined King does sound pretty nasty because of all the lifesteal you'll be getting, and it will make sustaining in fights with Katarina really nice. For the Keystone Rune, Electrocute and Conqueror will both be viable. If you're playing into more tanky enemy comp, then Conqueror value goes up, while into more squishies, you will want Electrocute. Point and click CC is what Katarina wants to avoid playing into the most, as it makes team fighting with her really difficult, so banning out Galio or Lissandra is always good value. And then for our third solo carry mid lane selection, watch out for Echo to start off the season. First off, with Riot updating turrets a bunch for Season 16, it's going to make split push champs a lot better. Melee champs are going to be dealing 20% more damage to turrets, and there's now going to be something called Crystalline Overgrowth that will affect turrets, where turrets will accumulate this overgrowth over time, and when you attack a turret, you'll consume this Crystalline Overgrowth to deal bonus true damage. So a mid lane champ like Echo, who has absolutely incredible tower taking ability due to being able to run Nashor's Tooth, should be loving these tower changes. Not only this, but the new item being added to the game called Dusk and Dawn has the potential to be incredibly OP on Echo. And not just because the item offers up all the base stats that Echo wants in health, AP, haste, and attack speed, but it's actually because of the passive. Something we didn't even realize until very recently is that the Spellblade passive on Dusk and Dawn actually works a bit differently than on Lichbane. The Dusk and Dawn Spellblade passive reads that on hit effects are applied twice. This is absolutely insane for Echo because it means that when you use your E on an enemy, you get 2 stacks of your passive off on them immediately. So an E into an auto combo is now going to proc Echo passive, and you don't even need to land your Q. This alone is going to make Echo so much more noob friendly and drastically lower the skill floor required to play him. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and land your Q though, because if you can land your Q, then all you'll need is to hit E for the instant passive proc. The standard EQ animation cancel combo with Echo is now just going to give you your passive proc once Dusk and Dawn is completed, which is going to feel so smooth. So the core build we see becoming really nice on Echo for Season 16 is a Dusk and Dawn rush into Nashor's Tooth 2nd and Rabadon's 3rd. This will be your ultimate split push setup, as the attack speed and on hit effects will allow you to skirmish super well and annihilate towers. For the rune page, you will take Hail of Blades as the keystone and then grab sorcery for secondaries. Matchup wise for Echo, Yasuo can be pretty difficult to deal with due to his wind wall being able to block your Q and therefore limiting your ability to proc passive, so he's a good ban to consider. So heading down to bot lane now, it's likely going to take a little while until we get a true read on who the best ADCs are, but going into the patch, one champ we think lands in a great spot is Ashe. So with the new role quest, ADCs will gain bonus gold upon completing their quest, gain more gold for killing minions, and gain access to an additional item slot. Progress towards your quest is gained by farming minions, scoring kills, collecting tower plates, killing towers, and taking epic monsters. So in theory, an early game dominant ADC like Ashe should really excel in this new season, where completing your quest before the enemy ADC will give you a nice edge up. Once you complete your quest, you'll instantly be given 300 gold, and then more gold from minions for the rest of the game, so getting your quest done as soon as possible is really important. You'll also gain the 7th item slot, but honestly, we don't see this being as big of a reward as that boost in gold you'll get. There's also a chance that Ashe could end up liking the new ADC item called Fiend Hunter Bolt, as it gives you a big boost in power when you use your R, and also provides ability haste for your R cooldown. It's just hard to say if the item will be better value than Phantom Dancer, so when we release our itemization guide later on in the week, we'll have a more clear idea for you guys on the best Ashe build. As if ganking wasn't already going to be difficult enough for junglers with the new Phaelite warding locations, if you're playing Ashe, you should really never die to a jungle gank in Season 16. Scouting with E combined with the Phaelite warding spot is going to give you so much vision that you really should be reported if you're dying to early ganks. And then for the build on Ashe, Kraken should remain the best rush option, but second item is a toss-up. Fiend Hunter and Phantom Dancer have potential to be great second pickups on Ashe, while Infinity Edge will slot in third. Banning out a meta dive champion is always good value when picking Ashe, so either Zehen or Sylas are two solid options right now. An ADC who we think has a lot of potential to be a phenomenal pick for Season 16 is Jinx. So first off, Jinx is a candidate to run a few of the new ADC items, as we've got Hex Optics, C44, combined with Stormrazor being re-added back. Hex Optics is going to provide you with bonus damage on your autos based on how far away you are from your opponent. So since Jinx has the 200 bonus range from Fishbones at max rank in Q, she will gain the max 10% bonus damage from Hex Optics, as you need to be at least 700 range away to get full value, and since Jinx has a base auto range of 525, Fishbones adding on 200 puts her at 725. And then the second passive on Hex Optics gives you 100 bonus range when you score takedown on an enemy, so Jinx definitely has the ability to use both of these passives really well. As for Stormrazor, it could replace Yuntal as a rush option on Jinx, but Yuntal with IE is just such a powerful 2-item core for Jinx that we feel like it's less likely that Stormrazor becomes a staple purchase. It's more so just that the fact that you'll now have a greater gold income from the ADC role quest, and therefore you'll be able to reach your 3-item spike faster, which has us leading to believe Jinx will be super powerful. Jinx with Yuntal, IE, and Hurricane becomes a menace in teamfights, especially if paired with an Enchanter support, so being able to hit that spike more reliably this season should make her really devastating. And one thing we didn't even mention yet is that crit damage is being increased from 175 to 200%, so that 3-item core is going to hit even harder for Season 16. If Hex Optics does end up being a good pickup on Jinx, then it's probably a 4th or 5th buy. We can't really see it overtaking priority on Yuntal, IE, or Hurricane, but if it does, then we'll be the first to let you guys know, as we'll be releasing a complete itemization guide later on this week once we get some time to test the items on live servers. As for your ban when playing Jinx, it's always a good idea to ban out whichever dive champ is being played the most in meta, so Sylas or Zehen are two good options right now. And then the third ADC who we think has the most potential to succeed with the new items and the new role quest for bot lane is Twitch. So Twitch is an ADC who, as long as he has his items, is going to be effective. It's always getting to 3+ items that is the most difficult part though, as Twitch doesn't have the most powerful early game, so the fact that you will now be given more gold upon completing your ADC quest is amazing for him to accelerate into his spike faster. Fiend Hunter Bolt is the item you'll want to pay attention to the most on Twitch, as it's a new Zeal item. It's going to cost 2,650 gold, provide 40% attack speed, 25% crit, and 4% movement speed, while the passive grants 30 ultimate ability haste, and after casting your R, your next 3 attacks gain 50% bonus attack speed, and automatically crit for 75% of your normal crit damage. If an auto would already crit, then it just deals the normal crit damage plus 10% bonus true damage. So in theory, it just feels like the perfect Twitch item. Popping out of stealth and mowing an enemy down with your R becomes a whole lot more potent with Fiend Hunter Bolts. The only issue is figuring out where you're going to slot it into your build path. It's an attack speed item, so it's not something you're going to want to rush. Yuntal Wild Arrows as the rush likely remains the play, while Fiend Hunter slotting in second would be most likely. You will have to delay your Hurricane purchase until 4th if you do this though, which honestly doesn't even sound that bad, especially considering gold income is accelerated for ADCs. Hurricane as a second item isn't always that great anyways, because you don't usually get those super bunched up team fights until a bit later on in the game. Otacon being removed from the game is also going to make it so that Hurricane value drops off as a second purchase, because there won't be as many of those super bunched up fights. You can think of it like this: if Fiend Hunter is going to allow you to way more easily find pick plays on enemies caught out of position in the mid game, then losing some AoE damage potential in a team fight from Hurricane is not going to matter at all. If you're able to provide your team with a 5v4 prior to an objective spawning, that is way better value than what you'll ever get out of Hurricane in that ensuing team fight. Fiend Hunter is going to open up so many more opportunities for Twitch to assassinate squishies in the mid game, especially with that 30 haste you get for your R, so the overall snowball potential from the item will be huge. So a core that you can look to try will consist of Yuntal Rush into Fiend Hunter second and Infinity Edge third, delaying Hurricane to your 4th slot. Since it's the early levels that Twitch really wants to survive without falling behind, using your ban on a strong laning support like Karma is a good idea. The support meta will be pretty interesting to start with Season 16 because there are a few new items that could provide nice boosts to certain champions. One of the new items, called Whispering Circlet, should be really good for Sona, and we've got her as our first support selection. So Whispering Circlet is going to be the new support tier item. It's only going to cost 2,250 gold, which is massive for Sona because she liked Archangels due to all the mana it provided, but didn't like the steep cost up at 2,900 gold. Now that Sona has access to her own cheaper version of Archangels, it's going to open things up for her to hit a faster mid-game spike. Whether you rush Whispering Circlet or grab its second item is tough to say, but a core consisting of Echoes of Helia and Whispering Circlet should be really strong. For some strange reason, Sona players continue to max their W out first instead of Q, despite Q max becoming way stronger in Season 15 after the spell got buffed. It's actually insane. In high elos, Sona players that max Q first were winning 8% more than those going W in 25.24. So if you do pick up Sona for the start of Season 16, look to max Q into W second. The rune page for Sona is going to revolve around Airy for the keystone, while precision runes are for secondaries. Look to ban out a melee engage support when playing Sona, as both Leona and Blitzcrank are solid options. A new tank support item is being added to League for this season, and it's called Bandle Pipes. This one should be great on a lot of your melee supports, but one in specific we think should excel the most is Braum. So Bandle Pipes is going to cost 2,000 gold and provide you with 200 health, 15 haste, 20 armor, and 20 magic resist. The passive is what makes it really attractive on Braum though, as slowing or immobilizing an enemy will grant you 20% bonus movement speed, while nearby allies and yourself will be granted bonus attack speed, 20% for ranged and 30% for melee. So in theory, Bandle Pipes is amazing for Braum because whenever he slows an enemy with his Q, that bonus attack speed proc will then make it so that you can proc Braum's passive stun faster. The overall skirmish power of Braum will become stronger as there's less chance of enemies escaping if you can tag them with Q. Braum in general saw a nice uptick in power towards the end of Season 15 as he got directly buffed, so with this new item addition, we expect him to be a top tier support heading into Season 16. The core build that you can look to try will revolve around a Bandle Pipes rush into Locket second and then Solstice Slay as the item upgrade. Braum doesn't like playing into ranged supports, and especially ones who can limit his skirmish power, so banning out Morgana is a good idea. Having your ADC complete their role quest before the enemy ADC is going to provide your team with a massive edge up for this season, and therefore playing a strong laning enchanter like Karma should be really good. In order to complete the ADC quest, you need to be able to farm, get kills, knock down tower plates, kill towers, or kill epic monsters, and by picking Karma, it greatly enables your ADC to excel in those facets, while you can deny the enemy ADC a lot of progress towards their quest by keeping them hemmed under tower. Denying CS is going to be even more valuable in Season 16 because you're not only causing the enemy to miss gold, but they won't be completing their quest as fast. Nami is definitely another great alternative to Karma as well, but unless you have a good amount of experience on Nami, for the average support player, we would side with Karma due to her being a lot easier to execute. Shoving enemies under tower becomes even less risky for Season 16 as well due to the new Phaelite warding spot in the island brush. When you place a ward down in the Phaelite spot, you gain bonus vision down the river for 45 seconds, so it gives you a window where you can play way more aggressive in lane. This is exactly what Karma wants, as she's at her best when she has the push in lane and can be threatening mantra Qs while the enemy ADC is trying to last hit under tower. There's also potential for Karma to like the new tier enchanter item called Whispering Circlet, as she'd be able to spam her spells in the mid game without ever having to worry about running low on mana. Moonstone with Redemption should be a great core build though, while Dreammaker is the item upgrade. Supports who can do a good job at matching your early game laning power are good bans to consider when picking Karma, so Nami is a really good option right now. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. Alright everyone, that's going to wrap everything up for our very first edition of the solo carry list for Season 16. Thank you all so much for watching, good luck in ranked, and we'll see you in the next one.